Etsy. Can't live with it, can't live without it, right? If you're an artist looking for advice on how to sell your work on the internet, there can be a lot of information out there to scare you away from Etsy. So I just want to share my story of how I actually went from my own website to selling on Etsy and why I still choose to use Etsy today. Hello, it's Stephanie of the future. Of course, the same day that I filmed my Etsy video, Etsy announces that they're raising their fees. Whenever Etsy talks about raising their fees, there's usually a lot of panic and everyone talks about whether it's the time to finally leave. So I'm going to interrupt the video a few times to talk about the new numbers and show what steps I took to ultimately make the decision to stay with Etsy, at least for now. I know a lot of business videos tell artists to stay away from Etsy, make sure you keep everything on your own site, and I get it. Etsy's kind of like a social media account. If the website went down tomorrow, do you know how you'd reach your customers? I mean, that's why when I first started selling online, I went straight for making my own website. I started selling my pottery online in 2016. Before that, I was selling at craft shows and art fairs. I didn't really have a need to sell online, but once I made my first dragon mug, I had people online that wanted to buy. Initially, I was selling out of my Instagram DMs, which was a nightmare. Even back then when I was doing my research, people were complaining about Etsy fees and saying that if you wanted to feel like a real business, you should have your own website. So I started my Squarespace and I made it a commerce site. Well, when I first announced my website, sales were great, but they quickly decreased and I couldn't find a way to get them to come back up. I still seemed to have an interested social media audience, so I didn't understand why my sales were dropping. I decided to poll my audience. I asked them, if you're going to buy from an artist, would you rather buy from the artist's own website or Etsy? 60% said they'd prefer Etsy. Some of the reasons they gave were that they believed Etsy was more trustworthy, and they didn't know if they could feel safe giving their credit card information to an artist's personal website. I'm guessing that more people are used to artists' individual websites now, but it's still something to consider. Even if you're being hosted by something like Shopify or Squarespace, someone might not realize that. Etsy has a trusted brand name. Another reason my customers gave for preferring Etsy was that they like to keep all their purchases in one place. That way, if they ever wanted to look back at what they bought, they have their order history all on one website instead of having to search through their email inbox or try and remember where they got something. So when I saw that 60% of my audience preferred Etsy, I decided to open one. For a while, I was running my web store and my Etsy alongside each other, but it quickly became obvious that Etsy was where I was going to make my sales. There are a lot of other customer benefits from Etsy that I see in my own behavior. When I find a new artist I like on TikTok, I can click through to their website. Now, if it goes to a personal site and everything is sold out, I'm probably gonna back out and forget about that artist, never see him again. But if they have an Etsy, even if they're sold out, I can favorite their shop. And now I have an archive of artists that I can look back on. If they have an Instagram, maybe I'll follow them and save a post, but the chances of me coming back to their shop are much higher if they have an Etsy. I know that I make my birthday wish list, my Christmas wish list, by scrolling through my Etsy favorites and thinking about what I really want. Sure, I've bookmarked some websites before, but again, it's that convenience of having everything in one place. If I do it, I'm sure other customers do it too. Those are some opinions from a customer's point of view. So let's talk about some benefits to you as a seller. Now, online sales still weren't the biggest part of my business until 2020, of course. When I look at my numbers, I started my Etsy in May 2018. So between then and the end of February 2020, I had made 237 sales. When you look at between March 2020 until now, I've made over 1,100 sales, or 5 times as many sales in almost the same number of months. Because of course, in 2020, online became my only income source. Online sales dipped a little bit in 2021 because I was able to do in-person shows and put my focus there, but Etsy is now a major part of my income. When I look at my Etsy account, I have over 2,500 people who have favorited my shop. What I like about that is that every time I restock something on Etsy, that's going to send a notification to those people. Maybe not always to their email, but if they log into their Etsy account, they're going to see the little bell notification that says I've added items to the shop. Sure, lots of those people probably overlap with my social media, but if they miss my posts in the algorithm, I know that I have this backup of Etsy notifications. Just like how emails are a great way to get around social media algorithm, these Etsy notifications are just another way for customers to be reminded about you. Another benefit of Etsy are the reviews. Sure, other websites have widgets that you can add to allow people to give you reviews, but I've built up a collection of over 800 reviews now on Etsy, so it would be quite a loss if I went back to a website. So one of the biggest complaints against Etsy are the fees, right? Let's talk about those. There's a 20-cent listing fee, which the percentage of that on your product cost, of course, depends on what you're selling. 20 cents is going to be a lot higher of a percentage if you're selling a $3 sticker versus if you're selling a $30 mug. After your item sells, there's a 5% transaction fee from Etsy, and then a 3% plus 25 cents fee for the credit card company. Because Etsy's credit card processing fees are very similar to other websites' credit card processing fees, I broke down the fees to just the 5% or 6.5% comparison. Etsy is increasing their fees from 5% to 6.5%. If that 1.5% increase is really scary to you, I suggest taking a look at your prices because it's possible that you're undercharging. Obviously, no one wants to give up more money, but you have to think about what services Etsy are providing you and if those services are worth it to you. Now, when it comes to selling in stores, a lot of the times you're doing consignment or wholesale, which can be up to a 50% cut on your retail. Now 5 doesn't seem so bad, does it? So figuring out numbers was definitely a bit easier at 5%, but let's look at what 6.5% would look like if you were doing a craft fair. Say that fair's fee was $50. You would have to make at least $769 in sales in order for your fee to be there 6.5%. If you sold anything less than that, then you'd actually be paying a higher fee. And that's not even including considering the time it takes you to package up your goods, set up a booth, and sit there for 6 to 8 hours to sell your work. If you think about time as money, that $769 is actually an even higher threshold to meet just a 6.5% fee. That's just a real-life comparison for Etsy fees versus selling in person. Now, I know no one's really happy with Etsy's ad program, and as someone who can't opt out of it, I understand that frustration. I make less than 5 Etsy ad sales a year, so it's not the worst thing in the world if they're gonna take 12% from me. I'm sure other people have had different experiences, but that's just a look into what my experience has been. Now, when it comes to shipping, when I had my Squarespace, shipping was a pain in the neck. I didn't add any third-party websites to my shipping orders, so I would have to manually copy and paste the name, the address, everything over into the post office website in order to print labels. Now on Etsy, I love that all I have to do is put in, the weight and the dimensions, and it already has the address in there. Purchase easy. And what some people might not realize about Etsy is that if you're a seller, you do get discounted shipping rates. I know that people with Shopify use things like Pirate Ship or Stamps.com to get discounted shipping rates, but Etsy does give a range. I've seen maybe a 12% discount to even a 20% discount on over-the-counter costs at the post office. So even with that 5% transaction fee, some of that is offset by your savings on shipping. So how did I decide if Etsy is still worth it? Well, I looked back on the last year and I wrote down my sales for each month, along with my percentage of Etsy-driven traffic versus self-driven traffic. One big reason a lot of people leave Etsy is if they notice that they're bringing in a majority of their traffic. There's no point in paying for Etsy's search function if the search function doesn't actually bring you any clients. I definitely know that I bring in a lot of my Etsy sales, but when my store is stocked with common household items like sponge holders or spoon rests, I do see that most of those sales come from Etsy. And once a couple have sold, they seem to sell nonstop because they end up higher in the Etsy search. Of course, the Etsy search is something I haven't even touched on, but if anything I've said in this video has made you more interested in Etsy, feel free to ask me any questions. I would love to go into further detail. This is where you'll probably have to do some math for yourself. Depending on what other website you're looking at hosting your store on, those are going to have monthly subscriptions. So you'd want to figure out how many items would you have to sell for that monthly subscription to only be 5%. I chose to compare these fees to Shopify's subscription since many people who leave Etsy go with Shopify. I don't know too much about their features, but from a quick look at their price chart, I decided to base this on their middle subscription of $79 per month, as if you were paying it monthly, since Etsy's fees are charged in real time rather than on an annual basis. So depending on how many sales you make that month, your Etsy fees could fall below $79 or above $79. Let's walk through a sample spreadsheet together. If you want to try this comparison for yourself, I added a link in the description to a free Google Sheet that's ready to fill out with your numbers. Filling out this chart will give you a snapshot of what your finances might look like with a fee increase or by switching platforms. Remember that this does not include Etsy's 20-cent listing fee or credit card processing fees, since credit card fees are similar across platforms. Essentially, you want to record your sales for each month. Then you can see what they looked like with the 5% fee and what they will look like with a 6.5% fee. Compare that to the website that you want to switch to. Notice if the 6.5% fee is often above or below the website fee. Another stat you'll want to look at is your Etsy-driven traffic and your self-driven traffic. Look for any patterns and think if there are any explanations for when these percentages differ from the pattern. For example, in August, my Etsy traffic dropped to 16%. That was because almost all of my inventory was at the Renaissance Festival, so there weren't many listings for Etsy to even push. But in December, when I had a lot of Etsy listings, the Etsy traffic increased. Go to the link in my description for more findings and questions to ask yourself once you fill out this chart. Because switching platforms would take a learning curve and time designing the new website, you have to look at if your savings is worth your time. So I did this by dividing the difference of my expected Etsy fees and the Shopify fees by $25 to represent paying myself $25 an hour. Looking at that time, is it worth my money to give that time up to spend learning about Shopify? Now in my particular case, because I just started this YouTube, I want to spend all of my extra spare time learning about how to edit videos and learning about the back end of YouTube. So it doesn't make sense for me to have to now learn a whole new commerce website at the same time. So in conclusion, for me, the benefits of Etsy are still worth that 1.5% increase. Now, am I saying that Etsy is the end-all be-all? No. But with so much media that bashes Etsy, I just wanted to give another perspective of why I chose it and why I'm still on it today. I find that Etsy is really user-friendly. Maybe it's just because it's what I'm used to now, but the number of people I have favoriting my shop, the number of reviews I have, the backlog of listings that I already have a library created for, those are all worth it to me to continue using the service of Etsy. This could be different for you, but I hope this video gave you some new ways to explore if Etsy is worth it for you. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. And if you're looking for more business tips, hit subscribe. If you have any other questions about Etsy or small business decisions, please leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to get back to you with some answers. Thank you for watching.